Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're stepping straight into the shadows of the haunted mansion with a spooky new build. I'm going to show you how I created a flameless candelabra inspired by that iconic endless hallway scene. It's aged, it's weathered, and just ghostly enough to feel like it's been flickering there for the last 100 years. Like every build I do, I always start with a quick thumbnail sketch of the overall design. I need to see the whole picture and make sure everything lines up proportionately before I dive in. Most of the materials were already in my shop, with a few new additions brought in to complete the final candelabra. From there, assembling this piece and getting it lit up should be a smooth ride, I hope. Our journey begins, moving from right to left, with the 3 key spray paints that will give this piece its final ghostly finish. Right behind them, we've got a 1/2-inch PVC pipe and fittings forming the backbone of the build. Then come a collection of plastic deodorant and medicine bottle caps. Next is some epoxy sculpt, which is a 2-part self-hardening epoxy modeling clay. A 2-piece plastic planter. Some rigid insulation and Mod Podge. Now that we have all the ingredients we need, with this pile of materials, I managed to scrounge up from around my shop. It's finally time to dim the lights, cue the atmosphere, and start bringing this candelabra back from the great beyond. You'll notice the PVC fittings come with raised lettering on the surface, and unless the haunted mansion suddenly partnered with a plumbing supply company, that's got to go. We'll sand those bad boys down totally smooth as a baby's bottom to sell the illusion. First and foremost, a quick public service announcement. Always wear a respirator when sanding PVC. Trust me, your lungs will thank you later. We're building haunted decor, not auditioning to become one of the mansion's 999 happy haunts. With that said, I'm starting with 150 grit sandpaper and smoothing down this 4-way cross PVC fitting until all the raised lettering disappears. If we're selling the illusion, no modern manufacturing stamps can survive. In the haunted mansion, the details matter, especially the ones you don't notice. Using a manual sanding sponge and holder, I aggressively go after each of the PVC elbow joint lettering, just like before, knocking down every raised mark and smoothing out each seam until the surface is clean and uniform. Next, I use a metal straight edge to measure the 1/2-inch PVC pipe and mark it precisely at 8 inches with a marker. To cut the pipe to length, I use a wheel-style pipe cutter. I position the cutter's blade directly on the marked line, tighten the adjustment knob until it's snug against the pipe, and begin rotating it around the pipe in a full 360-degree motion. After each rotation, I tighten the knob slightly to gradually increase pressure. Because this PVC pipe has a thick wall, it requires multiple passes before the blade cuts completely through and separates the piece cleanly. With all the PVC parts ready, I apply a small amount of PVC adhesive to the inside of the 4-way cross fitting. Then I insert the pipe and use a firm tap with a rubber mallet to seat it fully into position. After attaching the remaining parts, this is the completed subassembly so far. Cool, right? To fill the empty void in the plastic planter, I press a piece of rigid foam against the opening to create an impression. This allows me to see exactly where it needs to be trimmed for a proper fit. To cut the foam, I use a retractable knife along with a metal straight edge to trim it down to size. I keep the blade steady and square during each pass to ensure the cuts are clean, straight, and smooth. With the final side trimmed to size, I will need to round over each corner to create a consistent radius. This will soften the edges and helps the piece match the overall shape more naturally. And this is what it looks like. Let's see if they fit together nicely. Perfect fit. Now I perform a dry fit test to ensure all the components align properly and fit together as intended before moving on to the following assembly. So far, so good. I'll mark both plastic caps for cutting, as these pieces will be used to support the candle. And here's how the plastic caps look like after cutting the openings I marked earlier. To ensure each cap fits correctly, I perform another dry fit, checking that they sit properly and look the part. To conceal the joint where the PVC pipe meets the rigid foam, I use epoxy sculpt, a two-part epoxy modeling compound that combines the pliability of sculpting clay with the strong bonding power of epoxy. It's a good idea to wear nitrile gloves when working with epoxy sculpt, as it's very difficult to remove from your hands. I start by kneading the two parts together like dough until the color is uniform. Then I shape a long strip and wrap it around the joint where the PVC pipe meets the foam. I press it into place with a rounded sculpting tool and smooth it into a rounded radius shape with my fingers. Once cured, it will harden into a firm, rigid shape. And here's the full candelabra assembly, completely joined together and ready for the final details. To light it up, I'm using 18-gauge wire cut to the right lengths. I begin at one of the outer ends, feeding the wire in from the top and carefully guiding it past the elbow joint. Once it reaches the middle, I use needle nose pliers to pull it out from the bottom. Now, I take a moment to label the wire. This way, I'll know exactly where each one belongs when it's time for the final connections. It keeps the assembly organized, makes wiring much smoother, and helps prevent mistakes that could slow the build down later. With all three wires inserted and labeled, I tuck them neatly into the bottom base. This keeps them out of the way and protected, preventing any accidental spray paint from getting on them when I prime and paint the entire candelabra. Now it's time to add the final embellishments that will really bring this candelabra to life. To break up the hard lines created by the four-way cross and elbow PVC fittings, I add decorative bands that I made using a silicone mold and white hot melt glue. I carefully apply the glue into the crevices to fill in all the voids.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
After the glue fully cools, I remove each band from the silicone mold and prepare them for installation. I take a quick measurement and trim each one to the desired length. Since the bands remain flexible, they wrap cleanly and easily around each joint for a snug fit. These added details help soften the rigid, manufactured look of the PVC while adding layered texture and bringing more visual depth to the overall piece. At the same time, they effectively cover up the basic structural components underneath, helping transform the simple structure into something far more ornate and believable. After securing all the details in place, this is how the candelabra looks like. Pretty neat, huh? To protect the foam from the spray paint, I apply a generous coat of Mod Podge over the entire surface. This forms a durable, clear barrier that seals the foam and prevents it from reacting or melting when the spray paint is applied. I repeat this process as many times as necessary, building up multiple layers to ensure a consistent, even, and fully sealed coating. Here's what it looks like after several layers have been applied. Now it needs time to fully cure before moving on to the next step.
The next morning.
To add texture across the whole candelabra, I use 3M's Super 77 spray adhesive. This creates a subtle, organic surface variation that, once painted, will resemble aged wrought iron. Then it hit me. I noticed one thing that was missing. I forgot I had to add the 3 drip trays to the tips. Alrighty then. Switching gears. I guess I'll work on the candles while the glue cures. To create the simulated candles, I'm using this 1¼ inch PVC pipe. The middle candle is cut to 5 inches, while the 2 outer end candles are each cut to 4 inches. I use a pencil to draw a jagged line along the top of each candle, marking where the wick would have melted. This creates the illusion of dripping, melted wax. Now I follow the pencil markings and cut the tops using my bandsaw. No need for perfection here, close enough for government work. Always gets the job done. At this point, I'll use my rotary tool with a drum attachment to refine the shape of the candle tops, giving them a more natural melted look. And yes, I'm wearing a respirator again, because breathing in PVC dust is one trip you don't want haunting you later on in life. After a massive close encounter with the business end of my shop vac, here's what the 3 PVC candles look like. To create the wax drip trays, I fired up my 3D printer and made 3 identical custom pieces designed to fit perfectly on top of the deodorant caps.
2 hours later.
Well, after 2 hours, here they are, hot off the press. All right, time for a little microsurgery on the candelabra. I'm going to retrofit the drip trays onto the tips of the deodorant caps, even though I may have gotten a little ahead of myself and spray glued everything earlier. Once they're in place, I'll hit them with another coat of Super 77 adhesive so they blend seamlessly with the rest of the build. Wish me luck.
1 million, zillion, jillion, dillion, cotillion times later.
Well, that took longer than I thought. Once the spray adhesive is fully cured, again for the second time, I apply Rust-Oleum Professional Fast Drying Primer to the entire piece, creating a uniform base and preparing the surface for the top coat.
The following day.
And now, the moment I've been waiting for, applying the final finish in Rust-Oleum's hammered dark bronze spray paint. As it goes on, the hammered texture begins to take shape, adding depth and character that truly brings this candelabra to life. Now, I could stop here, add the remaining elements, and call it a day. But no. If this candelabra is going to truly look like an antique relic, it needs to be weathered accordingly. To achieve that effect, I'll be using a patina acrylic paint mixed with water in a 50-50 ratio. After blending it well, I load the mixture into this small pump spray bottle and lightly mist it over the entire surface, giving the piece the well-worn character of something that's endured for centuries.
1 day later.
After applying a light coat of gold rub and buff, I sealed everything off camera with a top coat of Krylon Fusion Flat Clear Spray to protect the finish. With the weathering finally complete, it's time to move on to my second favorite part of any build, the wiring. To start things off, I created a simple wiring diagram that outlines all the components needed to power this candelabra. To control the 3 flickering LEDs, I'm using a standard 9-volt battery and housing that features an on-off switch. To join the wires together, I'll use heat shrink solder butt connectors where required. This is followed by 2 5-terminal Wago 221 connectors to join the wires together. One connector groups all the positive wires, and the other groups all the negative wires. This allows power to be shared evenly, so all 3 LEDs turn on at the same time. 3 small DC buck converter modules are used to regulate the power coming in from the 9-volt battery, down to a safe and steady 3.3 volts. Each module supplies the correct amount of power to its LED, ensuring they operate safely and consistently. And last but certainly not least are 3 DC 3.3 volt Cobb LED flicker bulbs. These bulbs are specifically designed to mimic the natural flickering movement of a candle flame, creating an authentic glow without using an actual flame. So let's go and light this candle. Here, I'll connect the 2 wires together, just as shown in the previous diagram, making sure the connection is secure. And with a little movie magic, the connection is now complete. Here's the 9-volt battery that will power the bulb. Let's turn it on and see if everything works. Awesome! It works! All I have to do is to slide the bulb through the bottom slot and set it into place. Next, I'll take my white hot melt glue gun and carefully secure each bulb into its position. Once the glue has fully hardened, the bulbs are securely in place and ready for action. Now I'll tuck the wires into each PVC pipe and carefully press them into each opening. Once all 3 candles are secured, the final step is adding simulated beads of melted wax to each candle. I begin at the wax drip tray, running hot glue up the sides of the candle and flicking it over the top to mimic the natural flow of melting wax. This technique creates an uneven, organic look similar to a real burning candle. To enhance the effect, I build it up gradually, allowing each layer to cool before adding the next strip. Working in stages gives the simulated wax more depth and a natural appearance. Finally, to conceal the exposed pipe edge at the top, I apply one last bead of hot melt around the perimeter. And with that, this build is officially complete. And there you have it, my take on the hallway candelabra from the Haunted Mansion. This would look amazing with any Halloween decor, a haunted house dinner table setup, or as a spooky centerpiece for a themed room display. If you enjoyed today's build, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell, share, and comment below. To help support the channel, please check out my Etsy store at toyandpropmasters.etsy.com, where you'll find something for everyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next build.